The construction industry can be a great career path if you're a hands-on learner. It can also be a great place for you to get a change of scenery. Different projects, different locations, different places. You get the ability to work outside, you get to work around a group of people that hopefully you enjoy, and let's be real, you take home a set of skills that you can take pretty much anywhere. Today I want to talk to you guys about getting into the construction industry, what that process looks like, the different options that you've got, and more. I want to share with you guys insight on what employers look for, along with what you need when you're just starting out, and what you can expect early on in your career path. It doesn't matter what trade you want to go into. Granted, some trades like plumbing, electrical, or HVAC do require further education or a formal apprenticeship. Everything that we're going to talk about today applies to pretty much any trade you want to go into. Let's talk about the different companies you could work for. Let's cover commercial contractors, residential subcontractors, builders, developers, general contractors, and more. Chances are you're going to go to work for one of these. Before we get into this, we do have union and non-union employers that we're going to talk about. Oftentimes the bigger commercial companies will be union and the smaller residential companies will be non-union. When you think of commercial, you think of big buildings, you think of medical buildings, gas stations, liquor stores, Starbucks, McDonald's, all these different places, right? Anything that is built with steel studs, massively framed, is a commercial building. All of your big stores, every store that you shop at, every medical building you go into, your doctor's office, everything is commercial. Now these companies can be great to work for because they're typically a little bit larger. They have a much more built out infrastructure for their company. You have HR, company trucks, everything that you need for pay, benefits, 401k, and more. These offer a great opportunity for people to get in at the bottom, ground zero, and go all the way up to running projects and making pretty good money. There's a good bit of commercial builders out there that are union. Now let's get into residential subcontractors. This is what the majority of people work for. This is what we have been over the years. This is how most small companies operate. Residential subcontractors will either do a handful of trades or specialize in a single trade. Some companies choose to do framing and siding, others choose to do foundation, flat work, and stone, any sort of masonry. But most of the time, these small companies have a good set of skills that they do, and they are broken into a subcontractor category. If you want to get into strictly framing, finding a framing subcontractor to work for that does the work that you'd like to do is probably a good route for you. But what if that's not what you want to do? What if you want to do a wide variety of things and you want to learn all kinds of different stuff? In that case, you have general contractors, builders, developers, whatever you decide to call them. These people are the ones that get brought in to make projects happen from start to finish. They're responsible for the scope of work all the way from stormwater protection to the very end, handing the keys over to the client. Oftentimes, builders, developers, general contractors keep a few laborers around for odds and ends around the projects, but other than that, unless they are in-house design build, most times they don't have full crews. They primarily subcontract out the work to subcontractors like we discussed with residential. So we've talked about commercial, we've talked about residential, we've talked about residential subcontractors. Aside from that, you have public works companies that are your city that deal with anything around the city. There's other types of companies that you can go work for, but for the most part, we're gonna highlight these three. Now, before we get into what we wanna talk about today, I wanna go over the difference between a subdivision, a tract builder, and a custom home builder because the two often get intertwined and there is a massive difference. Now there's a few things you need to know about tract home builders, subdivisions, things like that as opposed to the custom home world. Tract homes or subdivisions are big, large areas that get broken up from say 50 acres down into 500 houses. These floor plans are flipped different ways. You have model homes, big divisions, tons of people working. It looks like a great thing. But the bottom line is these big developers need to make a profit. Therefore, oftentimes they subcontract out to the cheapest possible people they can to where they maximize their profit margins. They need to sell these homes on the public market and they need to make a profit in doing so. What this often ends up being is pieceworking, and we've talked about this a little bit on the channel, but not all that much. Pieceworking is very common in California by general contractors to ultimately drop the cost of labor. They hire labor that is not on payroll, not on workman's comp, and they try to get things done as cheap as possible. Granted, not all big construction developments you see where there's 500, 1,000 houses getting put in are done this way. It is a very common thing. I just want you guys to know that prior to wanting to get into production framing and crank out house after house after house. It looks cool. It might be cool to say that you build 3 houses a week, but oftentimes these people are highly underpaid. Now the custom home world is a little bit different because you get to slow down, you get to look at the details, kind of figure things out more, and that world is a lot different in a sense that you're not going for speed. We've had a lot of comments here on YouTube on the bigger projects that we've done where people say, Matt, you guys are slow. Our guys would have had it done in a week. That's really cool. In the custom home market, we don't care if you could have it done in a week. We care if the tolerance is within 1/8 on our corners and that everything's built proper. That's what matters then. Now, regardless of what trade it is, production building often leads to worse quality. You don't get high quality builds. You have a lower pay because they're trying to profit more, and the projects go really fast. You'll be in and out in a couple days regardless of what trade you do. And then you've got the custom home market where you're going to be there as long as it takes because the quality is what you're after. Speed isn't really an issue. You're not trying to get all walls up in a day. You're trying to make sure that the work you put out matches the price that you charged. Custom home building is not cheap and the quality needs to reflect that. So speed is out of the equation. You're looking for quality building. So keep that in mind if you're new to the industry and looking for an employer. Look at those two options and think about what you want to do in the long run. But let's talk about the question that I get asked over and over. How do I get into the industry? Now, one of the most common questions that I've got over the years is, how do I get into the construction industry? People that don't have connections. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my dad, they were all in the construction industry in some way, so I walked right into it. Say whatever you'd like about that. I've dedicated many years of my life to help other people get into the same industry. So how do you find a company to work for and what does that look like? Well, the tool that you type that comment on is exactly how you're going to get in touch with these companies. Cold calling, even in 2024, is still one of the best ways to get in touch with a potential employer. Considering most construction companies aren't massive where they have a big website built out with careers on the bottom of it where you can click and actually apply, you're going to be contacting these companies by phone and talking to them direct. Now, if they are a larger company, they might have a careers tab on their website that you can click on and apply, submit your resume, and you get in that way. But for the most part, a cold call is still going to work just fine. But there's more to it, and let's get into that. Now, they don't know you before that phone call, before that email that you give them. They're not going to just reach out to you and say, hey, we think that you randomly want to be in construction. Would you like to join our crew? You have to put yourself in front of them. But before you do that, one of my best suggestions is to actually look at the work that these companies do. Do you see yourself doing that work? If it's production home framing, maybe you're not all that fast. Maybe you're not cut out for that type of work. Custom home framing where you can slow down and make things a little cleaner might be your fit. But do your research on these companies. Find out where these company trucks are going, look at the work that they're doing, find the projects that they're at. If you can see yourself on those job sites, call those people up and talk to them. Now, when you call these people, what exactly are you going to talk about? What should you push to these contractors to let them know that you're serious and that you want employment? My best advice to you is to explain yourself and be honest. Do you want long-term employment? Do you want short-term employment? These things are going to help them figure out if you're a good fit. Do you have any past experience? Are you a quick learner? Are you a visual learner, hands-on? What does that look like for you? These questions are going to let your potential employer know that you're serious. You can ask about your pay. What do the raises look like? How does that work within your company? And figure out exactly when your pay raise schedule is going to be. What do you need to know from point A to point B, all the way up to a journeyman status where you're making pretty good money. But here's something you have to do. You have got to be honest with these people. You have to let them know what you know and what you don't know. This industry is not one where you can fake it till you make it, regardless of what you think. If you don't know your way around a nail gun, a saw, or a tape measure, it is pretty obvious for anybody that's been in this industry to see. It reminds me of a time many years ago. We had a new carpenter on site, and the biggest issue that we've had is people show up and say, I can frame with whoever. Whatever you want me to do, I can do it. I can run a calculator. I could run all these guys. He showed up talking about how my 6 different wall heights and many different rake walls weren't difficult enough and that he wanted to cut stairs. He wanted to build roofs. So the very next day we decided to put him on a set of stairs. It was a rather simple set of stairs and told him, go ahead and cut this. This is available. It's all you. Have at it. He packed up his stuff and left. The reason that he did that is because he played hardball. He said that he knew how to do all this stuff. He was the best carpenter we could possibly find, and he lied. He didn't know how to cut stairs. He was really just a little too full of himself to try to land this spot. I don't know what exactly he was trying to do. But long story short, had he said, hey Matt, I don't know how to cut a set of stairs. Have you ever done it before? I would have gladly taken him aside and shown him exactly how to do it. If there's one thing I do enjoy, it's teaching other people how to do things. Rake walls, how to calculate different stuff, how to calculate your rafters, whatever it may be. I love the fact that I can pass on that knowledge to somebody else. So whoever's willing to listen to me, I will gladly share it to you. So don't lie about your skill set, regardless of what it is. We've had other instances where people show up saying, yeah, I could frame, absolutely. They don't have a nail gun, so we give them a loaner and let them go. And the first 5 minutes, watching the way they nail, watching the way they assemble stuff, you can tell they've never framed before. Don't lie in this industry. Be honest about what you know. It's going to help you out a lot. Now, what exactly are you expected to have in this industry? Doesn't matter what trade you're in, you're brand new. What do you need? Before you go out buying a bunch of tools for the job that you just landed, I would wait a good week or two and really see if you're a good fit. The contractor is going to test you out a little bit, see how you work with the team. Are you a team player? Are you helping out? Are you cleaning up? Are you staying busy? The only thing that you need in your first week or two of work is a good set of work boots and a nice pair of jeans. You need to protect your feet. You need to look the part, and you'll fit in just fine. Depending on your employer, they may go out of their way and buy you a set of bags to get you going. Buy the hand tools that are in them. It costs around $150 to get a basic setup. But if they don't do that, you can piece together a kit in the first month or so of work and have yourself a nice setup. But being honest, if you're brand new to the industry, the first month, you're really not going to be making cuts. You're not going to be nailing anything up. You are going to be moving material around and grabbing stuff for other people. And that's just the bottom line. Now, this is different if you're a few years into the industry. If you've been in this industry for 3, 4, 5 years, in my opinion, depending on the trade that you're in, you should have a decent amount of tools. I know within my own industry with rough framing, if you're a couple years in, there's no reason you shouldn't have a set of bags that are comfortable for you with all your tools, a drill and an impact, a saw, and a nail gun. The reason I say that is because everybody uses different tools. You might find a crew that'll supply you a nail gun, but oftentimes you're still gonna have your own saw. And I don't know about you guys, but I personally can't stand using anybody else's saw. I have to have the one that I use daily. So if you're brand new, pair of boots, nice pair of jeans, look the part. If you're a couple years into it, obviously you should have a tool belt. You should have the tools that you work with: impact, drill, saw, and a nail gun. Let's talk about some do nots. Number 1, do not bring drama to work. Leave everything at the door when you leave your house and show up to work ready to work. I have worked with so many people over the years that bring all this trauma to the job site and tell you about how bad this is or how bad this is, and at the end of the day you hear the same story a couple times. It gets old. Nobody wants to hear it. We're all there to work. We're all there to make progress on a building, and that's the bottom line. I've worked with guys that continuously bash their spouse, talk about how terrible their kids are to be around, and then we do Christmas dinner and I'm sitting right next to their spouse and their children thinking, man, your dad hates you. That is terrible. That shouldn't happen. Leave all that at home. Not only that, maybe be a little happier in life. Life's not that bad. Number 2 is do not be late. Be on time. There are days that you absolutely do not miss. Crane days, concrete days, anytime you have an outside source such as a concrete pump or a crane, those cost a lot of money. Do not be late on those days. Show up on time, get rolled out, get yourself going, and be prepared. And the last one is more of a personal thing, but don't butt heads with people. The construction industry is full of guys that think that they need to compete with one another, when in reality, these construction companies are gonna have a lead in place, they have journeymen in place, they have everything they need so that these projects can operate. And what I've found most is carpenters will butt heads as to who's in the higher up position. Who's doing better, who's the boss when nobody else is around, and quite frankly, none of that matters. If you guys out there watching this have any other do nots at the job site, please drop them in the comments down below. Now let's get into the harsh reality of what this industry actually is. It's an amazing industry that allows you to have a set of skills that you can take nationwide, worldwide even, and you can build. Whether you're a plumber, HVAC, electrical, mason, concrete, framing, siding, whatever it may be, that set of skills goes with you wherever you go. And that is one of the best things about the construction industry. Nobody can take that away from you, and you can take that wherever you may want to go. But let's be honest, this industry has a couple major flaws. The suicide rate in the construction industry is elevated quite high compared to the rest of the industries in the world. If you want to read more about that, there's a link in the description down below. If somebody you know out there is going through something and does need help, there's a hotline number down where that link is as well. To add to that, 8.6% of adults in the world have a substance abuse problem. That sounds like a lot, right? That is until I tell you that the construction industry has a substance abuse rate of 15%. If you put 100 people in a room, technically 15 of them should be addicts. For the longest time now, the stereotype has been that drug addicts end up in the construction industry. That's why the stereotypes around the construction industry is that you should be bringing your roofers a 12-pack of beer or your framers whatever the heck they drink. The construction industry is known though for drug addicts and alcoholics. They don't make up the majority though, and that's the good part. When I talked to you guys a little bit earlier about screening these companies that you want to go work for, this is what you're doing. You're weeding out all the bad ones and finding the companies that actually have credibility. Look for the companies that are clean cut, they look professional, and they do work that you want to do. Unfortunately, it is pretty common, 15%, nearly double the average rate. Substance abuse is absolutely nothing to joke about, and if you or someone you know may be struggling with substance abuse, there is a link down below as well. While 15% might be a lot, that does mean that 85% don't have issues with it. Therefore, a good majority of the people in the industry that you're going to run into, that you're going to work hand in hand with, don't have problems. This is why early on in the video talking about finding the right crew, screening these companies is so important. Don't just pick up a phone and call the first construction company that pops up on Google. Now I want to close this out on a more serious note with the fact that this industry has allowed me to provide for my family. For those of you that might not know me a little more personally, I had kids at a very young age, and in high school still, I needed employment and I needed to make money. This industry allowed me to get into it fairly fast. I was able to pay attention, focus, and learn as I went. I was able to have a paid apprenticeship where I went to work to learn and actually got paid in the meantime. And that alone makes this industry pretty damn cool. 12 years later, I have absolutely no desire to get out of this industry. And regardless of what people say about it, I think that this industry is hands down one of the most rewarding you can get into. I've talked about it a lot, but if you own a house, if you buy a house to renovate, whatever it may be, you have that skill set that you can take in there and do everything you need to do. The American dream is home ownership, and you have the ability to build it. But ultimately, today's video is about how to get employed, how to find the right contractor, and it comes down to screening these companies, looking for the work that they're doing, seeing if it fits what you want to do as a carpenter, an electrician, a plumber, whatever it is. You have to do your own research, but call these companies, be confident, but be honest. I can't tell you how many people I've had show up and tell me they're the greatest framer that we're ever gonna hire, and they end up terrible. Don't lie to people, it doesn't work out. I can safely tell you right now that there's about 50,000 other people that can cut a roof better than me. We do a lot of trusses out here. I won't lie to you. In your first year on the construction site, I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about what it is that you really are going to be doing, because some people have messaged me saying, Matt, I got hired and I'm picking up trash, I'm moving lumber, I'm not building, I'm not framing. You're probably not going to. Depending on the trade that you get into, you might not walk right into a full-blown apprenticeship where they're taking time to slow down and show you every single thing possible. A lot of the times these companies are hiring you to have an extra body around to help with heavy lifting or to grab material or move things around. This is also why you need to talk with these employers a little bit more up front and say, hey, here's what I want to do. Is this something you guys are going to be able to provide me? But one of the issues that we've seen lately with a lot of people is that they don't want to go through the process of laboring before getting into an apprenticeship. While you're laboring, you're showing that you can work hard and be dedicated to something, and then once you get your apprenticeship, you actually learn and go through the ropes. For myself, I swept up a job site for the first year and a half or 2 years before I ever really did a whole lot more. Quite honestly, I didn't mind the sweeping up the job site because I really didn't want to learn anyways. Took me a couple years of doing that before I realized I'd rather be framing some stuff. So before you get hired by one of these companies, when you're talking to them about employment, figure out what exactly it is you're going to be doing. But oftentimes you're going to be moving stuff around, you're going to be picking up trash, making sure the job site's clean. And that is a big part of any project. But don't be surprised when you get hired by one of these builders and you don't start pouring concrete or framing up big rake walls or stacking up custom roofs on the first week. But that's a wrap on today's video. If you guys have any questions about getting into the construction industry, we have a ton of industry professionals that comment on these videos. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what your question is. If you have questions on a specific trade or maybe about commercial track homes and maybe custom home framing, you're not sure what you want to get into, drop them down below. In the description, there's a handful of links. You should go check those out. There's also merchandise. Building America, support blue collar. That's beautiful. Go check it out, and I'll see you guys next time.